Did everybody hear me? Okay. All right. Let me start this over. We're here tonight for the Planning and Zoning Board. This is Wednesday, take my glasses off to read, October 20th at 6 p.m. And our first order of business will be a call to order. Who wants to handle that at the
call to order? Do you want me to do roll call then?
Yes, roll call.
Roll call.
Member Burke? Member Munoz?
Here.
Member Burbank?
Present.
Alternate Member Webster?
He's present.
Here.
Yeah.
Secretary Pfeffer?
Here.
Vice Chair Storozic?
Here.
Chair Northey?
And I'm here. And before we move into our approval of minutes and the agenda, I just want to give Mr. Burbank, welcome him as a regular member of this board who has been here before. Is there anything you'd like to say to your colleagues here?
Let's get on with it.
Okay. And welcome Mr. Webster as an alternate. We're happy to have you here tonight as well. Okay, approval of minutes and agenda. Did you all read the minutes, and are they satisfactory? If they are, we'll file them.
I got comments regarding the agenda.
I'm sorry, Ruben?
I'm sorry, the minutes. I got some comments regarding the minutes.
You have comments on them? Okay, let's hear your comments.
Okay, one of the things that to me is not clear. The minutes are supposed to reflect what happened in that meeting, correct?
Correct.
So you cannot create a set document saying that those are the minutes for what happened that day when you miss some parts that already happened. So I believe the agenda is not consistent with the main purpose or reflect or the summarize of the meeting. So
Okay,
in my case, I cannot approve the agenda because of that.
What do you see as correction to them? How would you correct them?
Well, either or, right or no. We did election for vice chair, and it is not reflected in the agenda.
I'm actually going to have our attorney address that issue because there was a.
It's not about the issue, the situation. I'm clear with the situation. What the thing is like why the agenda be strike. Actually, even strike. It's been. To me, this is not the minutes for the last meeting, because you cannot suppress important information just because it's not necessary.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative, but it does say that I called for nominations for vice chair, and that was, we just kind of got ahead of ourselves, not recognizing that position was filled, and you nominated yourself and the motion passed. So
no, you need to recall what happened that day. It's not about that. I'm no.
Well, what is your issue?
Is that it's not here on the minutes.
It is. It is on the minutes. I'm looking at it right now. I'm reading it from the minutes.
Well, in the last one I didn't find that thing.
Okay, well, the minutes that I'm looking at right now say election of officers, and I'm not going to read them verbatim, but it says Chairperson Northey called for nomination, for Vice Chair. Member Munez nominated himself. The motion passed unanimously.
Is that the revised agenda?
It does not say it's revised, but...
It's the original minutes. Here you go. Do you have this?
Yeah.
That's what she's referring to. This is the minutes.
Okay.
See if you start.
Yeah. Okay. So, start clear. So we can move forward.
Okay, so everybody's happy with the minutes, and we'll just file them. Mr. Burbank?
You need to abstain.
Well, then let's do it by a motion. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. I believe, Jody, you made that motion? No, you weren't here.
I wasn't here.
You weren't here. Mr. Pfeffer? Okay. Mr. Pfeffer moves the motion for approval of the minutes, and Mr. Munez, will you second that? Okay, you second that. And let me clarify with our attorney. Jody was not here last meeting, so I know Tom has asked to abstain because he was just approved for board. does Jody vote on this or not? I don't know what the policy
He
is.
can vote if he wishes to. I mean, these are they're just this, they're the minutes from the previous meeting. And, you could have a situation where your whole board changes over, but you still have to approve.
Yeah, that's always been the way I've operated.
Yeah, so you still have to approve the minutes, even though those folks are no longer there. So it's, I mean,
Okay.
we only had 4 people at that meeting, so, it's, there weren't probably enough anyway, but it's basically your choice.
Okay, so we got a motion on the floor. It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And Mr. Burbank, you have abstained from that as requested, correct?
Thank you.
Okay, so that takes care of the minutes. And now we'll go into public forum. And just for the record, the minutes not the minutes, but the agenda reflected 2 minutes. And I think we had said that we were going to follow the lead of the commission and do 4 minutes for public participation.
Yes, Madam Chair, your agenda is the latest incarnation was updated for that.
Okay, all right. Is there any public participation for tonight? No? Seeing no public participation, is there any presentations that the staff wants to make before we move into old business?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Old business, there's nothing under old business. So we're into new business, and Mr. Paradise, I believe that is, you're up to the lectern now. And it's on resolution number 2021-38, a resolution of the City of Deltona, Florida, granting a conditional use to permit a community residential home within an R1 single-family district for property located at 1059 East DeCarlo Avenue within the City of Deltona, providing conditions, conflicts, severability, and an effective date. And you sent out, we all received the staff report, so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ron Paradise, for the record. Just to be a little bit repetitive, Resolution 2021-38 is a conditional use request for community residential home at 1059 DeCarlo Drive. 1059 DeCarlo Drive is located just to the north of the intersection of Alexander and Doyle Road in the south central portion of the city. This lot's a little bit bigger than the typical Deltona Lakes lot, which is about 10,000 square feet. This is a 14,000 square feet that is developed with a 2,686 square foot single family dwelling unit. The goal here is, with regard to this community residential home, is the homeowner will serve as a caretaker for up to 3 elderly residents at this house. The homeowner will also have help from another registered nurse to provide care in shifts for these residents. Staff has determined this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development code. Staff does recommend that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend to the City Commission that this conditional use be approved subject to the following conditions, and I will read them out loud. 1, the dwelling unit shall serve no more than 3 related elderly residents within the dwelling. All residents and related services shall be directly associated with and regulated by the Agency for Healthcare Administration, ACA. That is a state agency that regulates elder care and other caregiving activities within the state. The community residential home shall remain under the management and ownership of the applicant, Brenda Cruz, and the property owner of 1059 East DeCarlo Drive. A change of ownership shall require a new conditional use to operate a community residential home. The applicant shall continue to utilize the dwelling as a primary residence, including maintaining the residence as a homesteaded dwelling. The intent of that condition is to ensure that these applicants remain engaged and invested in the neighborhood in which these operations occur. No signage shall be allowed besides what is allowed for a home occupation, 1 square foot on the house. and the proposed community residential home service is for an adult family care home. If the applicant desires to provide any other services, a new conditional use application shall be submitted to the city for review and action. I'd be happy to field any questions you all may have with regard to this proposal.
Before we go to questions, is there any public that's going to speak? Okay. All right. Is there any questions for Mr. Paradise?
None from me.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Do we want to hear from the applicant?
Is the applicant here? Okay, I thought that was, when I said public, that was what I was expecting, but does the applicant wish to speak?
If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer. Do you have any questions for me?
Are there any questions of the applicant? Okay, there is. All right, you want to come forward? We do have a question of the applicant. Please give us your name and address for the record.
Hi. My name is Brenda Cruz. I've lived in Deltona for 20 years. I own my home for 20 years, and my address is 1059 East D. Carlo Drive on the 32725 side.
And Mr. Pfeffer, you had a question.
Yeah, just what are the limits on the condition of your clients? I mean,
You mean like their capability?
yeah.
These will be walking. They will be residents that walk and do most of the things from themselves, so they actually just need a little help and directions that can't live by themselves, so they need my directional care. It's not an assisted living. Assisted living is further care.
That's the next step.
That's the next step, right?
Okay.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there a motion and discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. Sure. I move that we recommend to the City Commission that they approve resolution number 2021-38, granting a conditional use for a community residential home located at 1059 East DeCarlo Drive with staff recommended conditions.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made and seconded, properly seconded. Any further discussion? I'm not seeing any, so we will call for the vote. Can we just get a roll call vote on these, please?
Member Munoz?
Aye, approve.
Member Burbank?
Yes.
Member Webster? Secretary Pfeffer? Vice Chair Storozic? Chair Northey?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. Okay. All right, Mr. Paradise, back to you, and this is ordinance number 80-2021.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ron Paradise for the record. Ordinance number 06-2021 is a major amendment to the Deltona Village Business Plan Unit Development. The Deltona Village Business Plan Unit Development, BPUD, was approved in 2010, and it does allow a wide range of uses, including commercial, office, service, and even, a multifamily component. This is a 130-acre site, roughly, and it is located south of the Howland Graves corridors, just west of Deltona High School. This site is currently developed with some locally known uses: Epic Theater, Racetrack Gas Station, Burger King. At this time, the majority of, at one time, that being the 1920s, this site was platted with a subdivision known as Davis Park. And eventually, the owner applicant was able to amass enough contiguous land and came in and rezoned the property to BPUD. Again, this is in 2010. However, there were several in-holdings or out parcels that were not owned by the applicant at the time of the BPUD rezoning. Through the years, however, the applicant has acquired these parcels and is now attempting to include these parcels within the Deltona Village BPUD. This would be considered a major amendment to any planned unit development, adding extra acreage, and basically requires a process through ordinance approval that's analogous to a rezoning. The major amendment includes the addition of 8 individual parcels that total approximately 10.3 acres of land to the Deltona Village BPUD. They're scattered throughout the property. We did have some graphics updated, courtesy of the applicant. Thank you very much. And I think they're available to you all there. You can kind of get an idea of where all these parcels are located with regard to the rest of the world. Even though we are dealing with a major amendment, and we are dealing with the addition of 10.3 acres of land, none of the basic entitlements of the BPUD will change. None of the uses will change. None of the traffic management elements of the BPUD will change. None of the dimensional requirements will change, et cetera. It's just an addition of more land to better unify the property, and again, changes nothing to the uses or entitlements associated with the BPUD. Also included as part of this, all of these in-holdings, with the exception of one, is associated with that antiquated plat, Davis Park. Lots and remnant right-of-ways. And part of this application includes the vacation of those lots and right-of-ways. And with the vacation of those lots and the vacation of the right-of-ways, the city is proposing that about 1 acre of land be granted to the applicant. However, to offset that, and this is not reflected in the staff report, the intent is that the applicant would grant us an acre of land for future right-of-way associated with the Rhode Island extension. Just kind of a quid pro quo, this for that. Pretty simple and straightforward. With that being said, again, this is not part of your staff report, so I'm going to ask that if you all feel this is appropriate to include this in your all's recommendation. And this is something that came up after the staff report was out and the agenda was produced. With that being said, staff does recommend approval of this major amendment to the BPUD, the vacation of the applicable lots and right-of-ways of the Davis Park additions, and does recommend that the Planning and Zoning Board recommend that the City Commission further condition this approval on there being 1.03 acre of right-of-way granted to the city to accommodate the Rhode Island Road extension. I'll be happy to field any questions you all may have with regard to this.
Okay. What is the desire of the board to ask Mr. Paradise questions now, or to ask the applicant if the applicant wants to speak?
I wouldn't mind asking one question.
Okay, well, then we'll start. Okay.
As it stands currently, under unified ownership, we have basically 3 different areas. We have the area that was platted, correct? And that's been described, it's been platted, and we got that. And now we have another area that is part of this application, that is the area that was platted minus the pieces that were already sold, and that's a different area. And then we have a third area, which is the second one, plus the addition of these 8 pieces. So as a new development agreement been submitted that defines what is actually will be the limits of this new PUD?
Yeah, how this will be handled is, this is the second amendment to this BPUD. There was an amendment in 2018 that modified the minimum lot size and minimum width requirements, and also made the 414 units of multifamily as right, not as a conditional use. And that was always treated as an addendum that was recorded into the public records to the 2010 BPUD. We intend that this document will also represent yet another addendum to the BPUD. And with regard to ownership, the owner of record is Deltona Deltona Retail Holdings. They own the land adjacent to these properties. Other properties that have been sold off, we have held that with regard to the amendment of other PUDs is that the public notification process gives them the opportunity to come forward and discuss and voice any concerns or comments with regard to this or any amendment.
I'm not real sure that you've answered my question, Ms. Paradise. Once again, there are 3 different entities floating around out there. Will there be a replat filed that encompasses all of these various entities?
Some of the, I'm going to defer that to the applicant's legal representation.
Okay. Will the staff be requiring a revised master development plan and a revised development agreement?
There will be a revised MDP, which is what you see depicted there. The development agreement will still, none of the language will change, but this addendum will serve as an adjunct.
The language that would change would be the legal description of the PUD so that we know what the limits of the PUD are.
We would be, if that's the direction of the PZ, we would be happy to advance that to the City Commission.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Strezek?
Mr. Paradise, my bank of concern right this minute is you were talking about this for that quid pro quo. Mm-hmm. That she must be the applicant or attorney behind you, but as you were saying that she was vigorously shaking her head no.
And that may be the case.
So that's... She's just saying she's never heard of it.
That's correct.
If she hasn't heard of that 1 acre thing, how are you sitting here telling us
like I said, this was kind of a last-minute development.
You should really inform the landowner.
I don't disagree.
She's back there shaking vigorously. No.
I don't disagree.
How can we vote on something if you're telling us something that's not true?
Then you have the option not to opine on that.
But I'm saying we're here to vote and discuss this. But the applicant is right behind you, and they saying they've never heard of what you're telling us. That causes a big issue to begin, from the get-go.
Fair enough.
That's a concern, and I guess I would follow up with that. I assumed that had been worked out between the city and the applicant, and I'm wondering now whether we should continue this, if that's a discussion the city wants to have with the applicant and they're not going to have it here when...
I think we have the option to defer this and move this forward.
Okay. That item would be deferred.
Yeah, that item would be, that standalone item would be handled. Yeah, we're going to be engaging with further conversations about access with the applicant.
Okay, so thank you. Well, he's saying by not including it. So let me start down this. And Mr. Muniz, do you have any questions before we go to the applicant?
I'm not ready for the question. Take it from here. Anybody else have a question?
I'd like another go if I could.
Okay, well, wait a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute. We're going to come down this way, and then we'll go back to Mr. Burbank if he has additional questions, and then we're going to hear from the applicant.
Can I yell to Mr. Burbank right now?
Because I'm preparing my question based on this information.
All right,
I don't have it before.
Let me go to Mr. Webster next. Mr. Webster? Mr. Pfeffer?
Yeah. I guess it's the south side, where it's Board of Ed property.
Pardon?
On the south side of this development, land development. there's a land called Board of Ed.
I'm sorry.
Did you say there's a piece of land called the Board of Education?
That would be the east. This, well, yeah, that'd be the south side.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, that's south side. The south of it, by toward the high school.
Okay, so what is the question?
Well, I don't think the setback is appropriate for that. I mean, since you're taking away some treed lots in the negotiation with the client, there ought to be some kind of a buffer versus a setback.
There are buffer requirements in the Deltona Village Bpud currently. This would not impact the buffer requirements of the Bpud.
There won't be any change to that, is what you're saying?
No, ma'am.
I mean, I'm feeling that since you're taking woods away and turtles and stuff, that if you're relocating it, locate it along this Board of Ed property.
Do you know what the buffer requirements are?
Yeah, it's 10 feet along North Normandy Boulevard, and I can't remember what it is along Graves Normandy, but I think it's more.
Well, I would assume that because that's prime gopher tortoise, that any kind of development would be required
to survey for tortoises and jays, absolutely.
I mean, in the process of approval, who represents conservation interests?
The city does, and we've got the city's.
But as a commission, do we?
Yes, you all have the ability to weigh in on broad policy matters with regard to conservation matters.
I mean, I'm just assuming that the parcels that are being incorporated are treed.
Some of them are, some are not.
And I'd like to end up with if not the same amount of treed property along the edges of it, something close to it.
And I think that the buffer requirements do afford a level of reforestation to occur.
I mean, how does one?
I'm not sure I get that, but.
Well, they're required to have the buffers and replant them with a certain number of overstory trees.
So are you suggesting that they would be wiped out and then replanted?
Yes, most likely.
Most likely.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting these trees be relocated, but I'm suggesting that an equivalent or something.
I hear you.
When they do their own landscaping.
Yeah, they do,
right.
but usually when you leave a buffer, you leave a buffer. I mean, that's always been my experience. Is that you don't.
We've seen it done both
rape the land
ways.
and then rebuild it with a buffer. I mean, you leave the buffer, you leave whatever's there. That's the idea of a buffer.
But in some way, we represent the governing part of the town interests. And part of that interest is to make sure that the school property is properly protected.
Well, we'll hear from the applicant on that. And Mr. Burbank, you had a...
Is that 1 acre right-of-way shown on this plan?
No.
So this is meaningless.
Yeah,
And the applicant is just now finding that out.
well, we're not going, that's no longer on the table.
I'm not sure what that means. What does no longer on the table mean?
Well, the swap out.
That's the damnest thing I've ever heard. Well, we'll see how the applicant's representation feels about that. So if this is meaningless, I don't know why it was distributed.
Well, it represents the property being added to the BPUD.
But if you're asking for
Thank
right-of-way...
you. I'm done beating that horse.
Let Mr. Burbank finish.
I'm finished.
Okay. Okay, Jody.
Where were you suggesting this 1 acre right-of-way?
Well, the 1 acre right-of-way is associated with certain parcels. There's a table in the staff report that details where these right-of-ways are located.
You said plural just then.
There are numerous right-of-ways, yes.
My thing is, I don't want to vote on this, and you say it's off the table, but then we vote on this, and then you make this decision gets made later after we vote for it, and it goes back in there.
Well,
I just find it odd that, more than obvious, she had no idea that the city was going to say, hey, we want an acre.
So Ron, let me ask you that question then, because I'm not,
Seems odd.
if in fact we vote on this tonight and we say, no, we're not including that 1 acre, all right, what happens between now and when it goes to the commission? Are changes potentially be made?
Changes could always be made.
Pardon me?
Changes could always be made.
Right, and then the commission then votes on that. It does not come back to us, as I understand.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it would go, so what we would vote on tonight could be varied from what the commission actually sees.
And that's always the case.
Okay, well, that was my understanding, but I just wanted to put that out there, and that it does not come back to us. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Pfeffer? By Pfeffer.
You're okay.
I'm always getting that wrong.
What is your reasoning for wanting these right-of-ways?
Our reasoning for vacating the right, I'll answer your question in a minute. The reasoning for vacating the right-of-ways is to facilitate unified ownership of the property in total. Okay, after these properties are subsumed into the Deltona Village PUD. Okay. The thought was that eventually the city's going to need right-of-ways through this property, including to accommodate the Rhode Island Road extension, which is going to be a strip of land that runs along the eastern margin of the property.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Muniz, do you now have a question?
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay. First, I'm having a hard time here trying to identify the lots with exemptions because I got exemption F, H, and everything, but I cannot identify any other documents. So at the same time, I would like to refer to this document here.
The one provided by the applicant?
Right. Yeah, I will go with both of them.
Okay.
To this document here. So, is anybody that can explain to me what basically we have here, or we holding here? Like, what is this exactly?
We just decided that was meaningless.
It's been approved already?
No, we just decided that has no value.
Please let Mr. Paradise respond to that.
These are labeled as, if you look at, there's arrows, and one says added parcel J, for example, up by the Burger King along the corridor there. Let me provide a map to you. Remember Munoz that comes out of the staff report? And this might provide some sort of clarification.
That's right.
So, Mr. Paradise, is there, I think the members of the planning board are concerned that this is probably not something we even need tonight. Would that be accurate?
Could you repeat the question, Madam Chair?
Is this map accurate for a use tonight or not?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay.
But not 100% sure.
Ron?
Yes.
It's me. I think there's confusion over what you proposed on that right-of-way 1.03. That has nothing to do with the staff report or those pieces of right-of-way that are being vacated.
That's correct,
Right,
yes.
So
Yeah.
I just think there was some confusion. Yeah.
I am not in the least bit confused. This is worthless. It doesn't show the Planning and Zoning Board an accurate depiction of what the developer has proposed or will be proposing.
Okay, well, I don't understand why you
There are
Can you
maps.
show me on this, please, where that 80-foot right-of-way is shown?
The 80-foot right-of-way is a future discussion point that's
It isn't on
independent.
there, and it isn't in the staff report.
Right.
Ron just brought it up this evening.
Okay.
It's not in any of this. So, and now it's off the table. So I do believe you have.
So we're focused back on the original memo that came
Yes.
from staff.
Yes.
Is everybody clear on that?
And this was passed out by the applicant to
Right.
try
I'm
and.
sorry, but I'm going to make a motion of pressure. That was my question. It wasn't answered, and you guys taking
Okay,
over.
Mr. Muniz, just a moment, please. Please let the
Okay,
city
so I
attorney
don't want to
continue.
speak to the rest because I know how to work.
I
I'm the
understand what
person
you're saying, but the city attorney was speaking.
making the question. I'm so sorry, I apologize, but at this moment, I'm the person making the question.
I understand that, and we're trying to provide you an answer.
I have right now the right to be answered, and I don't want you guys to make a discussion in favor or
Well, I think
against
that's what
somebody
they were
or in a
trying to
particular
do.
matter when I am
What are you
asking a
not-
question.
what are your-
I'm so
what is
sorry,
your
you can be the chairman, but at this moment, as a member, I have the right to speak.
No.
And I don't want to be
The
interrupted.
chairman controls the dais.
So you
So, Mr. Muniz,
shut
if
me
you
now
would
down.
just allow.
You shut me down, correct?
I'm
what I say.
asking you to
You shut me
allow
down.
the
Okay.
attorney to finish her remarks, and then I'll come right back to you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Muniz.
I
State your
just
question.
want to be in the records that I cannot speak because the chairman doesn't let me. Period.
Okay. Moving on. Are there other comments from other members? Any questions? If not, we'll turn to the applicant and ask the applicant if they want to make any presentation or any comments.
Can we ask further questions afterwards?
Sure, yeah.
Good evening. My name
Good
is Kim
evening.
Booker. I'm an attorney, Booker & Associates. My address is 1019 Town Center Drive, Orange City, Florida, 32763. I represent the applicant. I just want to first put on the record that, yes, we had no notice of the comments that were made, and I don't want to belabor the point since it's been withdrawn, but we had no prior notice that that statement was going to be made at this hearing. Clearly, this is an application to vacate, and I do believe that the aerial, I think in your package, gives you the best kind of representation of what is there on the land. What we're talking about vacating are a 1920 plat that had old lots with roads that have never been developed, maintained. They're only on paper. So we're not really... Ron has used the word right-of-way numerous times, but that's questionable because they are only shown on paper. We're trying to clear up those so that they can be incorporated into the already existing activity center. This is the activity center area that has an existing Bpud with all of the development requirements, including traffic requirements. The plan, as each parcel is developed, it goes back before for the site plan approval and division. You're going to see in the next few months several applications potentially.
We don't get to see those.
Well, you won't see everything, but there will be, I believe, one more zoning matter that will be coming before you. But so all of those requirements, for instance, the properties, if you can see, looking at the aerial, you can clearly see that most of the property has been cleared. Several of these parcels were part of a swap with the county of Volusia for retention sites. So we were taking on some more of the retention so that we could move things around. I think that we kind of got off track on what we're really trying to do, but these are 8 parcels, 10 out of 130-acre project, and all we're trying to do is bring these little pieces in so that we can make it part of the overall project. We're not asking for any additional
Anything
uses.
else? You're just asking to add them.
Correct.
And Ms. Booker, I can tell you, I remember having conversations with, he's since passed, but Herky Huffman, a realtor in this area, and we talked, because this was a project that I worked on at the county, and we talked specifically about the difficulty of the parcels and that old plat. And
Right.
yeah, so this is
If
what
you
we're-
leave it the way it is, you'll have issues trying to do anything with them, so it makes sense.
Okay. Is there any questions for the applicant? I'll start
I got
down there with
questions.
Mr. Burbank. I'm going to my right, Mr. Burbank.
Now, you're claiming that the application is merely to clean up the old antiquated plats and merge them into the...
On these 8 parcels.
Correct. But you're also asking to amend the PUD, correct?
Well, we're having to do that in order to bring those parcels in. That's all we're asking to do. And based on your process, we have to amend the BPUD to bring those parcels in. We're not asking to change anything under the existing BPUD. We're just trying to include those parcels so that they will, the criteria that is established in the BPUD will be applied to those parcels for development.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Strobe?
My only question on this one is this the, I mean, I know you want to include this property. Is this for, I don't know if you can answer, but is this to get something in the process of building something there or to sell it off in bigger chunks?
Well, it's going to be part of the overall project, and as it's developed, those parcels will be included in something that will
It's going to make it
be
easier to
developed, right?
I get it.
Otherwise, we've got little boxes that we're building around.
That means, yeah, I get it.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Muniz, we'll start down with you.
Yes, first, I would like to ask the members if any of the members are interacting with this project before, or had some sort of like sparked communication
Well,
on this project, something like
I'm
that?
curious as to if all they want to do is vacate an antiquated subdivision, why didn't you just petition to vacate rather than go through this process?
This
Okay,
was-
Mr. Burbank, just a moment. Mr. Muniz, is that your question?
No, that was a question for the
Okay,
members. but the
Mr.
question-
Muniz has the floor right now. Tom, I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Muniz, are you asking to have members of this
I asked
planning?
right there the question. Now they're going to ask the question to the person doing the presentation, and this is the question.
Okay.
Okay, in
okay.
a few words, help me to understand what is the main purpose besides to integrate those lots to the BPUD?
That's the main purpose.
The reason is because you guys had exception or no have ownership on these properties before. You own the properties?
No. They were owned by various, the county owned several of them, Volusia County, and then other individual landowners owned several of them, and they weren't able to acquire them until recently. The county, it was probably a year ago that they did a land swap on some, for retention sites. So these parcels now are just little out parcels in the overall boundaries of the property. So we're just trying to bring it in so that we can include those little pieces now in the overall development. Otherwise, you're going to be building around little squares.
Yes, which is no issue. But so that's the main purpose of this application, to
Yes, it's
integrate those, because before you couldn't, you know, had ownership or you know had control of those properties.
Correct.
But now you had full control and ownership
Right.
of the property.
Right.
With the
And the
person you're
reason we're
representing.
vacating the plats is because these little pieces have, 50, 100, small little tiny old lots.
That is clear, yeah, it's
And
clear
that's,
here.
we're trying to make it just one parcel. So then it will be divided based on what the existing BPUD requires.
Okay. The second question is, so the development that you got here, which is something is proposed or maybe it's ongoing, and it's going to be adjusted based on the integration of these properties, correct?
Yeah, if you, I think the aerial is the best depiction of really.
Yeah.
And those are just being brought into the surrounding properties so that we have one consistent boundary on the property.
I got that point,
Yeah.
But I say, like, when you do the integration of this one, you're going to rethink how this is going to look like. Is that correct? When you integrate those, you're going to rethink how this is going to look like.
Yes.
Because these look like right now, but with these exceptions, correct?
Yeah, you won't have those exceptions because they will become part of the.
This is going to change. In the future, this is going to change.
It'll all be part of it.
And then when you make the changes, you make the adjustment for whatever had to be done.
Right.
To comply correctly with the development, correct?
Right.
Okay, that's just basically the point. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think, Kim, some of these are probably 20-foot wide, 25 foot.
Correct.
Yeah.
Extremely
Yeah.
old.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Webster, any questions? Okay. Mr. Pfeffer?
Yeah, how do you control pedestrian crossing access on North Normandy?
That is all part of the development process, the site plan process. There are requirements that are set forth in your code, land development code, as well as the BPUD has some significant restrictions as far as what needs to be done for the development. So all of that is looked at the county as each project comes in. I mean, the city, I'm sorry.
No, and that's for vehicular, right?
Right, no, pedestrian access is also part of that review. You have sidewalks. Currently, one of the projects they're looking at right now is providing large sidewalks, so, for pedestrian access. But that's not part of this application. That has nothing to do with this application.
This is just vacations.
Yes, well, it's incorporating the land into the boundary of the BPUD, and then it's vacating the old plats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and just as a comment, I know, Ron, there's a lot of interest in this part, in this property because it's beginning to develop. So it might be helpful at one of our meetings for you to do a presentation, an overview of what is happening there and what's already in place, so that there's clearly understanding that it is developed and it's got requirements already on record that the applicant has to meet. I'm just thinking for education.
We would be more than happy to provide, some continuing educational type of presentation about, Deltona Village, past, present, and future.
That would be great.
And, we're going to be, talking about Deltona Village also in a formal context as well.
Yeah. This is beginning to take off, and it's important that this group have an idea.
I don't disagree.
Okay, and just from my perspective, this is pretty. It should be an easy lift. That we should want to close these sites up and give you whole ownership on, not you, but the applicant, whole ownership as part of the. I mean, the overall. He already has ownership, but as part of the overall picture, there is great interest in seeing this area develop appropriately. And this member would like to make that, because it's been since the 90s. We've been talking about that.
Long journey.
Yeah, and so it's important that we get it right and that we put all the pieces together that gives the applicant the opportunity to maximize that location for the benefit of the citizens that live here, the people, because we've been holding our breath on that for years, wondering when something was going to take off, and it's really exciting now. So, thank you. He was little. Thank you, Ms. Booker. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
you want to make a motion?
I haven't made it yet.
Oh, sorry. I think you're going to make it just the motion.
Okay. I move that we recommend to the City Commission that they approve ordinance number 06-2021, amending ordinance 21-2009 as amended by ordinance number 10-2018, request for a major amendment to Deltona Village Business Planning and Development, BPUD, and incorporate the acres as described, with the condition that prior to final adoption of the ordinance, that the applicant be required to submit an accurate and up-to-date development agreement with the plans included.
Second.
Wait a minute. Okay, we have a motion, and it's been seconded. I think Mr. Muniz has seconded, but I'm going to ask the attorney to.
Yeah, Ron's talking in my ear. I'm sorry, Kim. I think what the member's talking about is updating the legal of the exhibit.
Updating the legal, updating the master development plan. Those are all part and parcel to a development agreement.
I believe that's reasonable.
Well, we're talking about amending the development agreement to include the legal description of the boundary.
And also,
To add this to the...
Right, yeah, that would be expected.
Yes.
and normally, development agreements also include a copy of a master development plan that reflects the development patterns.
But the master development plan's not changing.
It is getting bigger.
No, we're not asking for any additional uses.
There's no,
Understood, but,
square
well, okay,
footage or
then I'll
traffic.
settle. I guess a legal description would be satisfactory.
Yeah,
Okay, you okay with that?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll second.
Properly moved and second. And we'll go to, wait a minute, it's all settled down. We have a motion on the floor, it's been seconded, and now we go to discussion. Mr. Pfeffer?
Is there anybody that's opposed to this that wants to say anything?
Well, I think I saw the applicant's representative saying that they could provide the information that was requested.
Yeah.
And I think I heard Mr. Paradise say that he was acceptable of, okay. Okay.
So does anybody in the audience disagree with?
Well, that's, we go to public now we're at public participation. Is there anybody that has no public participation? We will close the public hearing and ask for a vote. And we will ask for a roll call vote, please.
Member Munoz? Member Burbank?
Yes.
Member Webster? Secretary Pfeffer?
Oh, yes, approved. Good morning.
Vice Chair Starozic?
Approve.
Chair Northey?
Approve. Okay, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we are six. Thank you for the correction. You're right. It's 6-0. All right. Staff comments. Mr. Paradise, as you're walking out, do you have any staff comments? Okay. And Madam Attorney, do you have any staff comments? All right. Then we will move to any board or committee member comments from anybody. I'll start down with Mr. Muniz. Anything you want to add before we adjourn?
Okay, my first comment is this. One of the most valuable apports that a member does in here is just to come and participate. And we do it voluntarily. We don't get salary, we don't get anything that make us to come here. But one of the things that I can feel right now is like when an applicant comes here, and if, for instance, any of the members feel like connected with the applicant, I can see that the conversation sometimes is more controlled in favor of the applicant. So I think the board don't keep the neutrality that we're supposed to have when we have these meetings. And what happened right now, which makes me very, very unhappy, is like when I was in the middle of questioning, I get interrupted, and then you get interacted with all the Madam Attorney, and you control the voice and everything. Because you're the chair doesn't mean that you can speak longer than us and anytime you want it. And it's very disrespectful. And I respect you, and I deserve respect. And it's very important that when we analyze and we got somebody here, we have to be neutral. I don't care if I like the project, or you like the project, or somebody here like the project, or hate the project. Or not. We need to be neutral. We need to base the information and the facts, the information given to us. The staff make a recommendations. They give us all the information. We ask the question for the things that we don't understand. We know how clear. I came here, I just get a paper at the last minute. I wasn't clear. I was preparing my question. I take time to prepare my question. I yell to people to keep questioning because I don't want to hold nobody. Then when I'm going to ask my question, I get interrupted. And I ask for apology because I deserve it. Because as a chair, you had to control the meeting. It doesn't mean you had the meeting for yourself, or the only person that can speak here is the chair. I've been here for a long period of time. I never complain. I just ask the questions, I agree, I disagree. When I see that things are right or they're wrong, I disagree. But I not take sides. When people that I am connected to come here to apply for something, sometimes I resent to be in the meetings because I don't want to be involved emotionally or something like that. So that's basically what I'm gonna say. And also I'm gonna add that the last time we called for an election, and when I told to keep the election for later time, you decide to move forward and you make a mistake. So the mistake is not reflected nowhere, and I don't care because I hear as a member it's the same thing, being chair, vice chair, secretary or something like that. But this is wrong because what happened is like when you do that, this is what happened. I was named vice chair wrongly, which is right, but then I cannot post myself to be a secretary because I was already vice chair. So that thing, the election was not right. So the whole entire election needs to be repeated completely in order to keep us as a very neutral, no siding the things and doing the things right, because that is totally wrong. You cannot name somebody, then say, oh, we make a mistake, but that person now is the secretary because you don't have the chance to do it. So this is the kind of thing. And I'm not asking for a position. I don't look for royalties or something like that. I got my own title, I got my life, and every single thing. But I just ask for respect. If we make mistakes like that, we have to fix it and let the people know. Mr. Paradise was very polite. He called me, he communicated what happened. I realized that later. I don't ask him for anything. The thing is, like, to me, that election is not totally right. And I asking it if we can, or I ask the members and everything to make a motion and to redo the election and use all the members that were here, because we were short members. Mr. Burbank was a member, but he couldn't make it because it was a short notice and everything. So we don't give it the opportunity to everybody. We have only 4 people here, that very little. And the other thing is, like, one day I was late for the meeting and nobody followed me, but we wait for you and everything for the meeting. So this kind of situation is kind of make me look like we here as a member of the board and everything, we're not doing the things as the city are supposed to be. And that's my comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Webster, do you have any comments?
No, this is my first meeting.
Okay, Mr. Pfeffer? Okay, we'll go Mr. Strozik. Am I pronouncing that correct, Joe?
No, it's easier to say Joe.
Well, I just want to, okay, if you're okay with that.
I'd rather.
Okay, are you, any Mr. Burbank?
I'm stunned. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we will adjourn this meeting. We are adjourned.